wild swans at Coole. So in concepts, we have the fact that he's literally observing swans on a lake and experiencing nostalgia for the past. In terms of themes, we have natural cycles, aging and death. Techniques. So we still have an ABCBDD rhyming pattern, but it's not a complete rhyme. So there are some near rhymes used, and one long stanza rather than breaking it up into pieces, which is a little bit unusual for him. And there's a very rough 10-6 syllabic pattern. So the fact that he's not tightly controlling the structure here shows a little bit of a drift away from rigid romantic structures to a more modern voice. The swans, as elsewhere in Yeats' work, symbolise innocence and contrast with the ageing and spiritual corruption of humans over time. There are many motifs running through the poem. The first one we get is natural cycles. So he says things like autumn beauty and talks about October or September. Another is a fixation with numbers. So he's counting the swans on the lake, and he mentions numbers a few times. So 9 and 50 swans, and this connotes a preoccupation with aging, almost as though he's counting his birthdays. A final motif is that of boundaries. So he mentions a couple of words that signify boundaries, like shore, lake's edge, and twilight. So these are all where the edge of one thing meets another. And it's also often where the edge of something certain meets the edge of something uncertain. So we have the constant shore and the kind of uncertain water. So this might be the idea of where life meets death. There is an allusion to Yeats' own work, a vision, when the swans scatter wheeling in great broken rings. So that describes the concentric circles which move against each other to bring about the different eras or ages of mankind, according to Yeats. Towards the end of the poem, Yeats uses syllabis to show the changeability of nature. So syllabis is when you use one word that you know has two different meanings, and you use it in the first sense in the first meaning, and the second time you use it in the sense of a second meaning. So that's what we've got going on here. Passion or conquest attend upon them still, but now they drift on the still water. So the contrasting meanings of the word still mean as to continue or still as to be motionless, again brings up how one thing can be two things, so it's thinking about how life can also be death. The final metaphor, delight men's eyes when I awake some day to find that they have flown away, is Yeats wondering who will look upon the swans when he awakes. So he's used a rather strange metaphor here. Normally when you're thinking about using a metaphor for death, we'd normally say to sleep, but he's deliberately chosen the opposite, to awake. So that is again a little bit like a play with the syllabis before, that he's creating that duality between life and death, awake and asleep. The euphemism and the syllabis show the concept of life and death as part of one whole, a continuum, and that continues through a lot of his later work.